Good morning, everyone. So today's class, we are going to discuss the fourth, fifth, and sixth units. Right? Yesterday's class, we completed our discussion on the first three units. So unit four is about systems theory, systems approach to management, and unit five and six are about organizational behavior. Right? I hope my voice is audible. You all can hear my voice. If you have any problem with the voice, please put a message in the chat box so that I would know. Okay, just a second. Yes. So like I told you, Unit 4 is about the system's approach to management. Before that, we need to understand what a system exactly is, right? In management, what is system? So in a system refers to a collection of parts, a collection of subsystems, collection of entities that are three things: interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent on each other. That means a system consists of parts which are connected to one another, which are related to one another, and which are dependent on one another, right? And why are these subsystems or entities connected or related or dependent to one another? In order to accomplish a goal, right? So that is what is a system. See, we can take an example of a human body as a system, right? A human body is a system. Why, why can we take an example of a human body as a system? See, a human body also has many parts in it, right? Many parts, many subsystems that are all connected to one another, that are all related to one another, and that are all dependent on one another, right? So, each, when we talk about a system, every part of a system is important. A system cannot exist without any one part. So take for example, a human body is there, right? The heart, liver, lungs, kidneys, right? Pancreas, these are all different parts in the human body. Are they not all interconnected? Take for it, can a human being survive if one part is not working? Can we say that, okay, the pancreas will not work, but still the human body will survive? No, that is not possible, right? So all the parts have to function. Each part is dependent on the other part, right? So why are we talking about the systems approach? Why are we talking about systems in your organization theory and behavior? Is because an organization is also a system. An organization is also a system. An organization also has different parts in it. So take for it, maybe we can say that organization has different departments in it, right? Like HR department, finance department, marketing department. These are all different departments in an organization, and they're all connected to one another. Take for example, the HR department does not do its job. Okay, can the organization still deliver its products and services on time? It cannot. Similarly, accounts department is there. If the accounts department is not doing its job, can an organization deliver its products and services on time? It cannot. So all the departments have to function together. All the departments are important, and all the departments are related to one another. If you remove one um, department out of it, can it survive? No, it cannot survive. So that is so because organization is also a system, because the system approach can be used to an organization also, we are studying about a system. Okay. Next, what we are doing is we are trying to look at what are the different types of interdependencies that you find in system, any types of systems. Now, if you understand these different types of interdependencies that systems have, you can better understand how the different departments and how different members of a team depend on the performance of one another. What kind of interdependence is there between various departments, various team members, that we'll be able to better understand. And uh, even if these departments are interdependent from one another, uh, what is important is the fact that they are all connected to one another and they're all related to one another. So let us look at the first type of interdependence, which is the pooled interdependence, right? This is the most open type of interdependence of all the three, that is pooled, sequential, and reciprocal. Pooled interdependence is the most open type of interdependence. Now, while each business unit completes tasks that are separate from one another, they all make contributions to the main, the overall, the total goal, right? So if one department fail, the entire project could fail. The entire, the goal itself might not be achieved. Even though they are working independently, team members are still sharing that, loose or unstructured responsibility in order to reach the goal. See, for example, take for example, there is an organization which gives, usually organizations, when it comes to the number of days of leave that you can apply, organizations have this rule that you have so many days of leave that you can avail. But take, for example, there is an organization which says we have unlimited leave. That is, anybody can take any number of days of leave for genuine reasons. Now, the organization introduced this policy because they have the trust and faith on their team members that they will not misuse this policy. But take, for example, one individual or one group or one team in the whole organization misuses this policy. What will the organization do? The organization will cancel or will change this policy for the entire organization. Right? So what is happening here? If one member or one team also fails to make the policy work, all the others will have to suffer. Right? So this is known as pooled interdependence. Now coming to the next one, the sequential interdependence. So sequential interdependence is, you can understand it from the name itself, sequence. Right? So when does sequential interdependence happen? It happens when one department or one team must accomplish or must do something only when the other team has done its job. Like in a manufacturing assembly line. Say, I gave you an example yesterday that, if a table has to be manufactured, one person has to cut the wood, second person has to assemble the wood, third person has to paint the wood. Now, the person who has to paint the wood cannot complete his task unless and until the first two people have completed their task. So the person who cuts the wood has to cut it on time. The person who joins the wood has to join it on time. And only then this person will come into picture. So that is an example of sequential interdependence. So even one step also cannot be skipped in between. So all products also, see, first a product has to be manufactured, then the product has to be packaged, then the product has to be shipped. So when does shipping come into question? After the manufacturing is completed, after the packing is completed. Right? Now this sequential interdependence, what it does is it makes it possible for companies to be more profitable. Right? So that is the significance of sequential interdependence. Come to reciprocal interdependence. What is this reciprocal interdependence? Reciprocal interdependence is also like sequential interdependence. They both have one thing in common. What is that? See, they are both models of interdependence where one team is depending on the performance or output of another team in order to accomplish goals. So, like, for example, in sequential A, B, C, B is dependent on A, C is dependent on B. Okay? But A is not dependent on B and B is not dependent on C. So, in sequential interdependence, the interdependence is only in one order. But in reciprocal interdependence, A is dependent on B, B is dependent on A. B is dependent on C and C is dependent on A. So that is reciprocal interdependence. That is, each team depends on the other team for their performance or output. So this is like sequential interdependence is a one-way agreement or one-way transaction, whereas reciprocal interdependence is a two-way transaction. So both the teams, both the departments, they depend on one another, making everybody highly responsible for accomplishing the goals and tasks. So it's like, a cyclical workflow. In reciprocal interdependence, you see a cyclical workflow. Uh, and what happens to an organization is an organization becomes more and more profitable as the cycle keeps on continuing, right? They can, recruit more and more quality talent in order to increase the scale of their business. But if even one step in the cycle fails, then the entire model fails. So that is how important the role of each and every person or the role of each and every department is in reciprocal and sequential interdependence. Okay. Next, let us look at what is the systems approach to management, right? Now, I told you an example of a system. I said human body is a system and all that. Even businesses can be looked at that way, right? We can think of an organization as a collection of systems or a subsystems that interact with one another in order to create the overall organizational system. So, in a business, what is a system? A system is a cohesive collection of resources, activities, and information. Cohesive means together, bonded, right? And this systems theory can be found anywhere in the world. You can see it in science, you can see it in medicine, right? Where this knowledge of system is used to understand the human body better. And in the business world, it is used to improve the performance and results of the businesses, right? So in the systems approach to management, employees are more focused on achieving a collective goal for the organization rather than some operational output. See, what the systems approach teaches individuals or departments or organizations is, see, every team, every department should look beyond itself. So take, for example, I am a person in the marketing department. I should not only think of my job, my marketing department. I have to look at the entire organ. I have to work towards the fulfillment of the goal of the entire organization, not just the goal of my department. See, however well one department does, if the other departments are not doing their job well, the organization cannot succeed. See, for example, I'll tell you, different departments in an organization are like different branches on a tree. Can you say only one branch will flourish a lot, only one branch will do very well, all others uh, uh, might fail? Is it possible? Will a tree live like that? No. When will a tree flourish? When will a tree grow well? Only when all the branches are doing well. So that kind of approach, that kind of thinking should be instilled in employees, managers, and even in the organization, wherein, nobody thinks that, only one department is very important. The organization is only dependent on this department. All the other departments are useless. They are just in supportive roles. That kind of thing should not be there. Everybody should understand that we are all equally important, and unless and until all of us work together, the organization cannot flourish, right? So all the different members of departments, they should not look at themselves or as, enemies or competitors or anything like that. They should look at each other as partners, right? So that this is the systems approach to management. And how is it different from the classical management thinking? See, yesterday's class we discussed about the classical management theory. What happened in classical management theory? Organizations were viewed as like, just some simple machines that can be easily understood. But what does systems approach say? No, organizations are complex. They're all collection of these various entities which are highly dependent on one another, which are highly connected and, related to one another. If you look at this picture, this picture will help you understand an organization from a systems point of view. See, if you look at the horizontal axis on this picture, you see input, throughput, and output. Right? So every system has an input, a throughput process, and an output. Can we relate it to an organization like that? Yes, we can relate it to an organization also. All organizations need inputs. What are those inputs that the organization needs? Raw material, money, people, technology, right? These are all the resources that an organization needs. These are the inputs. And these are, where does an organization get these inputs from? The organization get these inputs from the external environment. And what does the organization do with these inputs? The organization processes these inputs, right? It processes them. So the process of conversion or the process of transformation of these resources happen within an organization, and that is known as throughput. And what is the outcome of this conversion process? The outcome is the output, whatever are the products or the services that are manufactured by the organization. So, an organization takes inputs from the external environment, converts them, processes them, and converts them as output and gives them to the external environment. So, in fact, we will discuss it later. I think in the next slide or so, we will come to that point. Every organization is highly dependent on the external environment. No organization can say that, we are not bothered about what is happening in the external environment. They are highly dependent. Where are they getting their inputs? They're getting their inputs from the external environment. Where will their output go? Their output would go to the external environment only. It is the external environment that has to take the output. If the external environment rejects the output, what is the use of this whole manufacturing or the conversion process? Right? So that is the horizontal axis. Look at, and if you look at the vertical axis, environment. So what is environment? All the elements outside the system that can still affect the system are known as environment. So take for example, an organization like Infosys. All the factors that can have an impact on Infosys, right? All of them constitute the environment for Infosys. So what are the competitors of Infosys doing, right? What kind of new rules and regulations the Indian government is coming up with? What kind of new rules and regulations the US government is coming up with respect to outsourcing of work? All these things will have an impact on Infosys. So all of them constitute the environment of Infosys. One second. The last point in this system is the feedback. What is the feedback? Feedback is a continuing source of information about the relationship with the external environment that can be used to make necessary changes in order to survive and grow. So take, for example, an organization manufactures products and it sends these products to sell in the external market. But people are not buying these products. What is the feedback? The feedback is that people do not want these kind of products. And the organization has to process this feedback and then make changes in the external environment based on that. If it says no, even if people don't buy also, I will keep making the same type of products, then who is at loss? The organization itself is at loss, right? So that is the feedback. This is a very clear picture of how an organization can be equated to a system, right? Now, let us look at some of the features of systems theory. The first one is interconnected subsystems. So I told you, every organization has a lot of smaller pieces in it, smaller entities in it. All these pieces are called as subsystems. And all of them interact and depend on one another so that the organization functions properly, right? That is the first one. The next one is no isolation, right? So, you cannot understand what the subsystems are by looking at them individually. What we need to do if we have to understand the subsystems, we have to see how each one of them, how they relate to one another and to the organization as a whole. So it's like, if you want to understand, you have to look at each subsystem as a piece of puzzle and see how it fits into the larger picture, right? Next one is boundary. So every organization has a boundary that sets it apart from other systems. So when I say a boundary, I don't mean a physical wall, or anything like that. A boundary, uh, a boundary will tell you what are the parts which are inside the organization and what are the parts that are outside the organization. So all those aspects on which an organization has control are said to be inside the boundary. And all those parts that over which an organization has no control over, those things are said to be outside the boundary. For example, employees. An organization has control over its own employees. So we can say that employees lie inside the organization's boundary. And customers. Organizations do not have direct control over their customers. So we can say that customers lie outside the organization's boundary. Right? Then one more feature of the systems theory is the changing nature of the environment. Right? See, all organizations are dynamic systems because they are affected by their environment, which are constantly changing. Right? So they can be influenced by so many things that are happening outside. There could be change in customer preferences, strikes, elections, election results. Right? We recently saw stock markets falling up and down because of election results, right? So these are all things that are happening in the external environment that are having an impact on the customers, right? So therefore, management always needs to keep an eye on what is happening outside the environment and what adjustments have to be made. If an organization is oblivious of happenings in the external environment and does not make changes accordingly, then the organization cannot survive. That is what is the next point. An organization has to be sensitive to the environment because they're influenced by the environment. See, just like we react when something unexpected happens, organizations also must be responsive and adapt to external factors that can have an impact on their operations. And the last one is monitoring and taking action. See, in order to ensure a healthy organization, it's very crucial to constantly monitor its well-being. Now, management needs to pay attention to signs of problems and take corrective action promptly. So it's like, regularly, a diabetic person regularly checks his insulin levels. I'm sorry, sugar levels, right? So it is like that. You also have to regularly check everything so that the organization is running smoothly. And then there are certain areas where systems theory can be of extremely helpful in a modern workplace. And those are three areas. One is strategic planning, second one is change management, and the third one is project management. Coming to strategic planning, see how having a very clear understanding of how an organization functions is very, very important for all those managers who are involved in the strategic planning. They need to know how these various departments work, how are they linked to one another, how they affect one another. All that information is mandatory for them, right? So this is where the systems theory of management is very, very essential. So it allows all the managers and the decision makers to look at things like, organizational change, organizational development from a broader perspective. And the next area is change management. Now, looking at the bigger picture, the holistic picture, instead of looking at just the individual functions and aspects of a management, can be a valuable tool for those who need to make changes in the organization or those who want to implement new initiatives within the business. Without having a clear understanding of the entire organization, nobody can implement changes. Whenever a change is made, how will it affect the various departments? That knowledge is very, very essential. And the last one is project management. See, when organizations have large multi-stakeholders projects, a systems approach will help them for planning, proper planning and delegation. It also helps managers for the interdependence between the various verticals in an organization, and assign ownership to achieve collective goals. So these are some of the areas where systems theory can be of help in a modern workplace. But though we discussed about all these points of systems theory, there are a number of criticisms against system theory. There are a number of limitations that people talk about as far as systems theory is concerned. So what are those criticisms? The first one is simplification. This criticism states that though the systems approach may be very, very helpful, what it does is it oversimplifies the complexity of real life organization. So real life organizations are much more intricate, they have more nuances than what the systems approach can actually tell us. Right? So oversimplification is one criticism. The second one is subjectivity. Now, using the systems approach requires interpretation and judgment from individuals. And this can vary from person to person. So different managers see things differently. And this leads to, possible variations in analysis and decision making. So there is no there might be no uniformity as such. Different people might come up with different analysis, different decisions, or different interpretations. That is one criticism against the systems theory. Then time and resource constraints, right? Because usually systems approach takes a lot of time, and it calls for gathering and analyzing all the data, which becomes a huge challenge, especially in large organizations. Gathering and collecting all the data becomes a huge challenge, right? And one more criticism against system theory is that there is too much of emphasis on interactions. See, understanding interactions is important, crucial. There is no doubt about it. But one second. Are you all able to hear my voice? There is one student who put a message saying that she's not able to hear my voice. Are you able to hear my voice? Please message in the chat box. Okay, fine. Okay, then one student, she must be having some technical issues at her place. Right. So one more criticism against systems theory is that there is too much of emphasis on interactions. So when you are focusing so much on interactions, then you may overlook the other unique qualities or contributions of other important elements in the organization. And the last criticism against system theory is lack of precision. See, what a systems theory does is it gives us a general framework of how this whole approach works. It does not give us a specific step-by-step instructions. So that is one problem. So if concepts are open to interpretation, then what happens? They can vary according to the situation. Okay. So I told you today's class we'll discuss about systems theory and organizational behavior. With this, we've completed the discussion on systems theory, which is like, unit 4, organizational behavior. Okay, with this, we're starting unit 5. Right? So what is organizational behavior? The title of your paper is organizational theory and behavior. So organization, we're talking about organizational behavior now. So what is organizational behavior? Organizational behavior is the study of human behavior at workplace, or the study of human behavior in an organization. That is why we call it as organizational behavior. Okay. I repeat once again. Organizational behavior is a study of human behavior at workplace, right? So if you look at the definition that I've given on the screen here, organizational behavior is a study of how individuals, groups, and organizations interact and influence one another. So this study examines the impact of various factors on behavior within an organization, right? Um, so whenever we're trying to understand why somebody is not working in an organization, why somebody is, always having conflicts with others, why somebody is not feeling motivated to perform, these are what are we trying to do? We are trying to understand human behavior at workplace, right? Now, organizational behavior is a specific area of psychology. Psychology is a study of human behavior. Organizational behavior is a study of human behavior at workplace. So, one thing that you need to understand is uh, people behave differently at workplace than when they do it in the a personal context. So, the way a person behaves at home might be very different to a way a person behaves at workplace, because here there are different set of goals. There is a different kind of framework within which a person has to work with. So therefore, organizational behavior is a separate field of study by itself, right? And what is the focus of organizational behavior? The focus of organizational behavior is employee productivity. Productivity is at the heart of the study of organization. So, in other words, why do you have to study human behavior at workplace? In order to improve employee productivity. It is not just for the sake of studying. It is not like, there is no goal for it. There is a goal. Why are you studying organizational behavior? In order to improve employee productivity. See, there are a lot of studies which have shown that, employees who feel valued, employees who feel appreciated, they tend to be more motivated and productive. And, this lead to increased profits for the organization. However, organization behavior can also focus on the ways in which organizations can better manage, change, and improve behavior in order to achieve desired outcomes. Right? So that is the need for understanding human behavior. One more thing, see, when you understand human behavior, the organizations and the businesses, what they can do is they can create and cultivate a positive culture and work environment that, in the long run will improve the organization as a whole, right? And organizational behavior describes how people interact with one another inside of an organization. Now, these interactions over a period of time, they influence how the organization behaves itself and how well it performs. And for most businesses, what is the use of organizational behavior? It is used to streamline efficiency. It is used to improve productivity, and it is used to ignite innovation so that, firms gain a competitive advantage or edge over others, right? So if we have to put in simple terms, what is it that you're studying in organizational behavior? Three things. See, 3 points I have given in the last line on the slide. What causes a particular behavior? So there is an employee who's not performing well. What is causing this poor performance of the employee? That you can study. What particular antecedents cause this behavior? Okay, this poor performance. What are the factors which are having an impact on this poor performance? Right? That you can study. And out of these factors, take for example, there are 4 factors that have been identified as those causing an impact on human behavior. Out of these 4 or 5 factors, which factors can be controlled directly and which are beyond control? Right? A study of human behavior will help you. One second. Are you able to see the PPT that I am sharing? Students, are you able to see the PPT? There's one student who has messaged that she cannot see my screen. Okay. Okay. Right. So, what causes this behavior? Which particular antecedents cause these behavior, and which of these antecedents can be controlled directly, and which are beyond control? Study of organization behavior will give us the knowledge about all these things. Just a second. Okay. Right. So, human behavior is a very complex and a multifaceted area of study. Uh, this keeps constantly evolving and changing with times. If you look at all the literature concerning organizational behavior, you would see that there are four elements that contribute to human behavior within a workplace. Okay, there are four elements that contribute to human behavior within a workplace. What are those four elements? People, structure, technology, and external environment. Okay, so people, see, people, they bring their own values. They bring their communication system, their personality when they come to a workplace environment. Now, these people's interaction with the work and their interaction with one another, that is a very important factor in a work environment. Every person being unique, every person having his own value systems, every person having a personality of his or her own. This is a very important element of organizational behavior. See, the study of OB would not have been complex if people are not so unique, if people are not so different from one another. But as we all know, people are unique. Even, in a family of 4 people or 5 people, each person would be different from one another. So you cannot expect an organization which has 100,000 employees who come from such diverse backgrounds to not be different from one another. So that is the first element of OB, people. Next one is structure. What do you mean by structure? Now, this structure, it refers to the relationships and roles of employees to one another and within the company. What does structure include? Structure includes elements such as, hierarchies, uh, authority, responsibility, relationships, job descriptions, departmentalizations. All these things fall under the purview of structure. The next one is technology, right? So, the machines, the tools, the resources that are provided to employees in order to perform their duties, in order to perform their work with the customers, uh, and otherwise also, they all fall under the purview of technology. Uh, when it comes to external environment, both the internal and the external environments have to be considered. Internal environment refers to the physical environment within the office, and external environment refers to the broader macro environment. That is something which is outside the organization, like, I told you, for example, elections, politics, what is happening in the overall economy, customers, right? So these are the various external environment aspects. The next one is understanding the concept of OB. See, we can understand the concept of OB or organizational behavior based on a lot of fundamental principles, right? Now, what are those fundamental principles that let us try to understand, right? The first one is individual uniqueness, right? See, uh, this coming from this psychological principle, this concept acknowledges that from birth, every person is different. And, there are a lot of unique experiences that people go through, which are different from one another. And these unique experiences shape them, have an impact on them. So individuals vary across multiple dimensions. And what are these various multiple dimensions? Like, when it comes to intelligence, when it comes to physical attributes, personality, learning abilities, communication skills, These are all the various dimensions that individuals differ. Now, it is the individual who bears responsibility and makes decisions. Um, Now, the group's power is latent until its members act. Uh, each individual member could be very, very um, capable, talented, but only when all these talented, capable members come together and act as a unit, as a team, only then the performance would be meaningful. So, the example that I gave you yesterday, if there's a team that is playing cricket, one member does very well also. If all the other members do not contribute, the team cannot win. Only when all the members come together and play well, only then the team will win. The next principle of OB is entirety of a person. Now, what this principle suggests is that an organization uh, not only appoints the skills of an individual, but that means whenever we are appointing people, we are not only appointing their skills, their abilities, their educational qualification, and things like that, but you are also taking in their personal preferences, their biases, their personal life history, their problems, everything. And one person's domestic life is also intertwined with their professional existence. Now, what this does is this uh, this creates the condition in such a way that every organization should provide a conducive work environment that promotes both professional as well as personal growth. So, see, an organization cannot say that, okay, if a person is having some personal problems, he's having some problem with his wife, or she's having some problem with her husband, whatever it is not our headache. We are only bothered about work. But practically saying, do you think a person who is having problems at home, can that person come to a workplace and perform well? He cannot. So therefore you have to accept that whenever a person comes to your organization, he comes along with his entire baggage. Right? The next principle is causality in behavior. That seems every behavior of an individual has an underlying cause. Every behavior. There is a person who does not come on time. There could be a person who's always, quarreling or fighting with his team members. There could be a person who never completes his assignments on task. Right? Every behavior has a cause behind it. So the underlying premises, see, when you see such kind of behavior, don't judge people. A person is not coming to office on time. A person is not coming on time. Don't say he's a lazy person. Don't just come to that conclusion. If a person is not coming to office on time, try to understand the behavior behind, the reason behind it, and try to, go to the root cause and address that reason. So that is what it means by causality in behavior. And the next principle is respect for individual dignity. See, every person, irrespective of their position, should be treated with respect and dignity. Now, this principle, it emphasizes the importance of recognizing and valuing each job. Thereby, what it does is fosters the improvement of individual aspirations and capabilities. Uh, so, an organization should not just treat its employees as mere economic instruments. Okay, they are a source of work for me. That's it. No, an organization should not treat its employees like that. They are people who have, you have to recognize and value that. The next one is organization as a social entity, right? So every organization is a complex social system, right? So when we say social system, that means people, right? So these systems are subject to both social and psychological norms that have an impact on the organizational activities. So within an organization, there exists a blend of formal and informal social structures. Now, what they do is they emphasize on the organization's capacity for dynamic evolution, about maintaining the rigid relationships, and every component within this system relies on the others for its function. The next principle is shared interest among organizational participants. Now, the principle of mutual interest, what it does is it puts a lot of emphasis or importance on the symbiotic relationship between individuals and organizations. What do you mean by symbiotic relationship? That means both individuals and organizations need one another, right? Employees need organization, organization needs employees. They both have that. See, just I gave you an example of Infosys. Infosys is a big organization today, which has its presence in so many countries across the globe. But imagine a situation: all the employees of Infosys resign today. Okay, all the employees of Infosys. What will happen to Infosys? Okay, you might tell me there is a lot of unemployment today in the world. So Infosys will hire new people. But don't you think it will have an impact on it? It would. It will take a lot of time for Infosys to come out of this. So such a big company like Infosys is dependent on its employees. Similarly, employees are also dependent on the organization. See, if I am an individual, I am qualified, I have knowledge, I have skills, and I have abilities. But how do I get my monthly salary? I get my monthly salary only when I am attached to an organization. Only when I render my services to an organization. Without that attachment, my knowledge, my skills, my abilities have got no meaning. Right? So that is one thing that needs to be understood. Right? So why do individuals join organizations? They join organizations in order to fulfill their personal goals and ambitions. And why do organizations depend on individuals in order to achieve their collective growth? Right? So having this shared interest is very, very important. Holistic approach. The holistic approach, what it says is that, the links between the individuals and the organization, that should be taken into consideration. Right? So that is the next principle of organizational behavior. The next thing that we need to look at is understanding the nature of OB. Diversity, how different people are from one another. That is what this point talks about. Then adaptability, right? So this principle talks about the need for organizations to be adaptable, need for organizations to respond to change in the market, in the technology, in workforce dynamics. Every organization has to change itself according to the changes that are happening in the external environment. And the third one is motivation, right? So understanding what motivates employees is crucial in organizational behavior, because that is what directly influences productivity, job satisfaction, employee retention rates, and all these things. So motivation is a very important concept in OB. In fact, later in your syllabus, we will talk about motivation. What are the different theories of motivation also we will discuss. Then coming to leadership. Leadership also we would study. What is leadership? What are the different theories of leadership? We will very clearly understand. So effective leadership is a cornerstone of organizational behavior, because it is the leaders who shape the culture of the organization. It is the leaders who set the vision. It is the leaders who guide employees towards achieving organizational goals. An organization which does not have a good leader, in spite of having all good resources, can still not be successful. So a leader, the role of a leader is very, very important. The next one is communication. So clear and open communication channels, they are very vital for the smooth operation of an organization. That we all know. Next one is productivity. See, in fact, the first slide when we were discussing itself, I told you. Why do we study OB? We study OB in order to enhance productivity. What is the point in trying to understand human behavior, trying to predict human behavior, or control human behavior? The reason is to enhance productivity by optimizing the work environment, right? Now, employee well-being, it is a focus area in organizational behavior with the understanding that a healthy work-life balance contributes to better performance and lower turnover. We have discussed this, employee well-being is very important area in organizational behavior. And employee well-being, not just professional well-being, but also personal well-being. No organization can say that, even if the employees are having a lot of problems in their personal life, they can still be productive. No, it is the responsibility of the organization to make sure. One second. Right? Employee no organization can say that, only I will only try to improve my professional well-being of my employee. Personal well-being is not important for me. No organization can say that, right? So that is about nature of OB. Someone student is asking whether it is from first point OB. Yes, it is in the first. Like I told you, this would come under the fourth unit in your syllabus. Okay, just a second. Next, let us try to understand the historical evolution of OB. Right? How did OB evolve? From where did it actually start? Right? See, just a second. The early studies, that is the late 19th to the early 20th century, the foundations of OB can be traced back to this period. Right? This was the period when scientific management emerged, industrial psychology emerged. Yesterday's class we talked about scientific management. Okay, so the scientific management popularized by F.W. Taylor, it focused on improving efficiency and productivity through the scientific study of work processes. Similarly, industrial psychology also explored topics such as employee selection, training, and motivation. So this is the origin of OB as far as the early studies is concerned. Next, the human relations movement, the 1920s to the 30s. OB, the study of OB received a great boost during this period, right? In fact, this period, the 90s, 20s to 30s, which is also known as the human relations movement, this challenged the mechanistic view of organizations, which said that an organization is only about machine, only about technology, only about raw material. It challenged those assumptions, and it emphasized the importance of social interactions. It emphasized the importance of employee satisfaction. So yesterday's class we discussed Hawthorne experiments were conducted. They were conducted at the Western Electric Hawthorne plant, and they brought the attention of the world to social factors, to motivation, to employee morale, and the impact of all of them on productivity. So this particular period, uh, it marked a shift towards understanding the human factors on organizational outcome. See, before that, take for example, the product quality is not good. Okay, let us improve the quality of the raw material, or let us improve the quality of the machine. Let us buy a better machine. That used to be the focus. People never thought that there could be a link between productivity and people. So, okay, the final quality product is not good. Maybe our people are not happy doing it, or maybe our people are not interested in doing it. Such kind of thought process was never there earlier, which changed after the human relations approach. Coming to the contingency approach, the 1960s to the 1970s. Now, this approach, what it did is, it recognized that, there is no one size fits all solution to organizational issues. Organizational issues are complex. One approach cannot solve all these various issues. So it emphasizes that organizational behavior should be contingent upon, or it should be dependent upon various factors such as environment, technology, organizational structure, and all those things. So this approach led to the development of contingency theories, like the contingency theory of leadership. We will study this. This is there in your syllabus. We will study later. Right now, so this contingency theory of leadership, it argued that effective leadership depends on situational factors. Coming to the systems theory, 1970s to 1980s, we've discussed this before, just now, right? Unit 4 was about systems theory. So systems theory, what does it focus on? It focused on understanding organizations as complex and interconnected systems. It examined the interactions and interdependencies between the various components of the organization, including the individuals, the groups, and the external environment. See, one unique thing about this approach is this approach highlights the need for holistic understanding of organization, and and the understanding of the consideration of multiple factors in organizational behavior analysis. Right? Then coming to the cognitive and the behavioral science, the 90s, 80s to 90s. Now this we can call that period as a period of cognitive revolution. Right? So this cognitive revolution in psychology, this period influenced the field of OB by emphasizing the role of mental processes. Mental processes like perception, decision making. We will discuss about perception. Maybe next week, when we have a class again, we will discuss about perception in that. Perception and decision making. Right? So behavioral science concepts such as reinforcement theory, social learning theory, they became very more prominent during this time. And these theories, they were applied to understand individual and group behavior in organizations. Now, this period also saw the rise of various important concepts like organizational culture, job satisfaction, employee motivation, and things like that. And 2000 onwards, you can call it as the contemporary period, the period with contemporary perspectives, right? If the field of OB, it continues to evolve. Whatever emerging trends and perspectives are seen, all that are being incorporated into the field of OB, like, you see topics like organizational justice, workforce diversity, workforce inclusion, work-life balance, virtual teams. All these are concepts that are being included in the study of OB, right? So these are all the common perspectives. So this will tell you from where OB evolved to what we see it today, right? Next, let us try to understand the scope of organizational behavior, okay? So the scope of organizational behavior, we would study it under 4 different headings. So, yeah, individual behavior, group behavior, organizational behavior, and the external environment, right? So what is it that we would study under individual behavior? What are these various aspects that are covered under individual behavior? The first one is personality and traits. So what exactly is personality? Personality is the way a person behaves, acts, and responds over a period of time. That is personality. So, individual behavior studies how unique characteristics like introvertedness, extrovertedness, emotional stability, emotional instability, how do all these things have an impact on work performance? Right? So that is what is about personality. The next one is attitudes and job satisfaction. It examines how employees' attitudes towards their job, colleagues, companies, how do they affect, what do these things have, how do they affect the motivation, productivity and retention? That is all under attitudes and job satisfaction. Then perception and cognitive biases. So perception is nothing but how do employees perceive their environment? How do employees interpret what is happening around them? That is perception, right? Then coming to the cognitive biases. So we people will have some biases, some prejudices. So how do these biases or how do these prejudices, what kind of influence do they have their on their decisions and actions? That also falls under the scope of organizational behavior. Then motivation also falls under the scope of organizational behavior. So what drives people to perform well? What are those internal and external factors? And how incentives boost engagement, productivity? All that you study under OB, right? Learning and development. So the last one is under individual behavior is learning and development. So learning is nothing but how do individuals acquire new skills, what kind of new knowledge do they acquire, and how do they, what is the impact of training programs on performance, career progression. All these things fall under the individual behavior. Coming to the group dynamics, right? So uh, see, when I gave you the definition of an organizational behavior, it is a study about individuals. It is also the study of groups. So group dynamics has a very key role to play as far as organizations are concerned, right? So, what are those things that you need to understand? The communication patterns, the leadership roles, team cohesiveness, conflict resolution, and group decision making. So, group dynamics, it shows how information is shared within a team. What is the effectiveness of communication channels, and how clear and open communication leads to better collaboration. And coming to leadership roles, see, OB also studies how different leadership styles within the groups, how leaders influence group performance, and what is the impact of leadership and team morale and motivation. OB has a important aspect about that as well. Then coming to team cohesiveness. So understanding cohesive means together, bonding. So understanding what makes a team cohesive, like trust, shared goals, mutual respect, and what is the impact of this cohesiveness on employee productivity, job satisfaction, that also falls under the scope of organizational behavior. Then coming to conflict resolution. So how conflicts are like disputes, disagreements, differences. So studying as to how do these conflicts arise, how can these conflicts be managed, what are the different strategies that can be used to resolve these strategies in order to maintain a positive and productive environment, all that also falls under OB. Then exploring how groups make decisions, how different perspectives lead to innovative solutions, that also falls under the scope of OB. Okay? Just a second. Yeah. So under external environment, you have economic conditions, financial conditions, technological advancements, social trends, demographics, regulatory changes. That means any changes as far as rules and regulations are concerned. Then globalization, competition, all these constitute the external environment. And the organizational structure. Under organizational structure, what is the hierarchy and authority? Authority means nothing but the authority responsibility relationships, right? How is authority distributed? Who is responsible for what? And things like that. Okay. Then role clarity and responsibilities. So, importance of well-defined roles, responsibilities in reducing ambiguity, all these things. Okay? Then types of organizational structures, how workflow and coordination happens, adaptability, change management, all these things you have to have a clear understanding. Okay. And what is not covered under the scope of OB? See, technical skills, financial management, product design and development, operational issues, legal compliance, they do not fall under the scope of organizational behavior. Okay. Now, this is an important thing. Interdisciplinary influences of OB. OB is said to be a multidisciplinary subject. OB is said to have a multidisciplinary approach or an interdisciplinary approach. That means whatever you are studying in OB, okay, that is derived from a number of different disciplines, number of different areas, number of different subjects. Like, psychology. Okay. So what is psychology? Psychology is the scientific study of human behavior and mental processes. So in OB, psychology helps us to analyze individual behavior within organizations, like, motivation, perception, decision making, stress management, uh, and things like that. And OB also uses psychological principles when it has to design any training programs. It has to assess employee satisfaction, and if any strategies are to be designed for uh, improving the employee well-being, a lot of concepts from psychology are taken. So that is about psychology. Coming to sociology, social psychology or sociology. See, it focuses on the structure and functioning of societies, social groups. So, in OB, sociology is concerned with the organizational structure, organizational culture, the impact of social norms and values on behavior. So, how does the field of sociology help OB? Sociological insights, they help organizations understand the effect of culture on human behavior, effect of culture on diversity, effect of culture on employee inclusion. What is the role of institutions and systems in sharing and shaping organizational practice? All that we get from sociology. Next one is anthropology. What is anthropology? Anthropology is the study of human societies, cultures, and behavior across time and space over a period of time. So, in a way, what anthropology does is it explores the cultural aspects of organizations, like, norms, rituals, symbols, all these things. And these anthropological perspectives, they help organizations in managing the cultural diversity, in developing the cross-cultural communication strategies, and also adapting to the global markets. Right? Economics. Economics, I'm sure you all must be aware of. You're all MCOM students. You all must have studied also economics. Right? So what economics does is economics studies the allocation of resources and the behavior of individuals and firms in these economic systems. So in OB, what is the role of economics? In OB, economics helps us to understand how incentives, rewards, and decision-making processes affect employee behavior and performance. These economic principles are used in OB to design compensation systems, incentive plans, and cost-effective HR policies. That is the um, input that OB takes from economics. Right? Last one is political science. So what is political science? Political science is a study of government, politics, and how power is exercised in a society. Right? So political science is relevant to OB because it helps understand the distribution and dynamics of power within the organization. What is the influence of individuals and groups on decision making, and what are the political strategies that are shaped, that are used to shape organization policies and actions. All by applying all these political science concepts, OB professionals can understand this, power relations, conflicts, organizational effectiveness, and things like that. Coming to the approaches to the study of organizational behavior, there are 4 different approaches. The first one is the human resource approach. Now, this human resource approach, it focuses on the well-being of employees, right? To manage their organizational behavior, right? So how does it do? It does in the following ways. People-centric. So human resource approach is a people-centric approach. That means this approach views people as valuable assets, most important assets, their well-being, their motivation, their development, their needs, their wants. That is what is more important, and these are what will lead an organization to its success. That is the people-centric approach. Then employee satisfaction. See, yesterday's class I told you, happy employees are productive employees. So that is one approach. So when employees are happy, they will be productive and that will lead to better outcomes. And then training and development. See, the more an organization trains its employees, the more it invests in its employees, the more uh, they would see better performance, right? So whatever is invested in employees in terms of training and development, an organization would be rewarded on that in terms of their performance, right? Next one is contingency approach. So this approach focuses on adaptability. It allows room for flexibility to accommodate any kind of deviation. So it focuses on the following. What are they? Context matters, adaptability, and flexible leadership. Context matter means, any problem is there. There cannot be one solution which can be applicable in all the situations. So which is the best solution? It depends on the situation, right? So adaptability. Organizations must adapt to external factors like chameleon, like just like they are giving an example like a chameleon. A chameleon changes colors according to the changes in the external environment. Similarly, an organization also has to change itself immediately according to changes in the external environment. And flexible leadership. Leaders also have to change their leadership style based on the organizations. Right? Productivity approach, it focuses on the task, the work that is to be done. Right? So efficiency is very, very important. All the processes should be streamlined. All wastage should be eliminated. All resources should be optimally used. Time should be managed properly, right? And all the performance that should be measured, analyzed, and improved. Only then, an organization can achieve. If people are just performing and there is nobody to measure it, nobody to analyze, or nobody to, improve it, then it cannot work. Just a second. The next one is systems approach, right? Now, this approach is based on the core belief of system and how it helps in the functionality. So, what is the focus of systems approach? The focus on systems approach is holistic view, feedback loops, and balance. So, right? So, what do we talk about in holistic view? That organizations are all interconnected systems, and any change in one part can affect the entire organization, can affect the entire system. Right? Coming to the feedback loops. So what are feedback loops? See, like a thermostat, you know what a thermostat does, depending on it regulates and makes sure that the temperature is maintained at a fixed point. So similarly, organizations also must self-regulate themselves. So take for example, I am manufacturing my products. People are not buying products. So I have to make changes to them. I have to continuously self-regulate. So inputs have to be monitored, outputs have to be monitored, feedback has to be monitored. That is the feedback loop. Then balance. See, goals could be conflicting. An organization could have conflicting goals, but all these conflicting goals should be balanced. Short-term goals should be balanced with the long-term goals. Sometimes, short-term goals might contradict with the long-term goals. But how to balance these two? That is also a huge challenge that the organization has. Some, organizations have profitability as a motto. Organizations also have social responsibility as a motto. How to balance these two? That is also a major challenge for the organizations. Right. The next one is the interdisciplinary approach. What is this interdisciplinary approach? See, this is a mix and match approach, right? That means you have to blend various disciplines. Just now we discussed about the interdisciplinary approach of OB. You have to mix psychology, you have to mix sociology, economics, and all these different approaches and then get the desired results. And the next aspect is complexity. See, organizations are very intricate ecosystems. If you have to understand an organization, you have to understand the interplay of the various variables involved in it. Right? You have to understand the complexity behind it. And the next one is innovation. So, these fresh ideas, they emerge at the intersection of disciplines. When various disciplines are being used, when various disciplines are being mixed and matched with one another, right? Then you would understand as to how this innovation comes about. Now, the last concept for today is what are the different models of organizational behavior that we need to look at. So, what are these models of OB? These models of OB, they're significant in order to understand what are all the factors and what are all the concepts that are relevant for a manager. Now, we are going to discuss about 5 models. Each model begins with certain assumptions about people, and it leads to interpretation of events. The first model that we're going to talk about is the autocratic model. Autocratic model, as the name implies, relies on authority. What authority? The authority to issue orders. And with the implication that, if an employee disobeys these orders, then the employee will suffer the consequences. And the authority to issue orders should lie with those people who are in position of authority, that is the top level people, right? Top level managers, right? So in an autocratic setting, formal official authority is the managerial approach, right? So this authority is granted by those people to whom it applies, who have the right of command, right? So what is more important here under this approach is an employee's loyalty towards his leader is much more important. In fact, under this model, an employee's loyalty to their leader, it supersedes any other regard for their management, right? And what is the psychological outcome of this model? The psychological outcome of this model is that the worker becomes extremely dependent on the manager, because it is the manager who can recruit, manager who can fire, manager who can motivate. Everything depends on the manager. But employees only put in minimum performance under those employees who work under this model, they only put in minimum performance. So obviously, the boss also pays them the minimum wage, right? And and there might be some employees who might perform better than the others, better than the average, and that might be due to because they might have that intrinsic motivation for success, or because they might like their boss personally, or because the boss is a natural leader, or for some other reasons. But most of them merely perform to a minimum standard, or most of them who work under this model just try to reach the minimum standard. Coming to the next one, the custodial model. Right? See, this economic, for a successful custodial model to be implemented, economic resources are very, very important. If you have to pay salaries, if you have to pay benefits, this strategy needs money. Right? So the employer looks at security needs as a motivational factor, because the employee's physical needs are already satisfactorily supplied. We saw that in autocratic model. The minimum wage is paid anyway. So a company cannot use a custodial model if it lacks the resources to pay benefits like pensions or health insurance, gratuities, things like that. This custodial model, it also makes employees reliant on the organization, dependent on the organization. So now employees depend on the organization for their security, for their well-being, rather than just their boss. See what happened in autocratic model? They were extremely dependent on the boss. Here they are dependent on the organization. Right? So workers, if they are working in a supervised setting, they become psychologically focused with their financial benefits and rewards. Right? They receive care, which is why they are kept in a good condition and are content. Next, coming to the supportive model. Now, what supportive model does is, see, instead of depending on money, wealth, or power, this supportive model, it depends on leadership. Okay, so by strong leadership, what management does is it creates an environment where employees can develop and where employees are encouraged to do all the things that they're capable of doing for the organization. And here, employees are not passive. They are not resistive. They do not resist the organizational demands, but instead, um, if they are properly supported, they in fact contribute to the organization. If the management allows, they will also take charge, because they have the desire to participate. They have the desire to grow and develop and become a better person. Therefore, management orientation, it goes beyond simply supporting employee benefit payments, just like how it was in the custodial model. So, in fact, in custodial model, it was only about how to give more employee benefits and things like that. But here it is how to support the employee job performance, right? And what is the psychological effect of this? The psychological effect of management supporting people in their work, it is a sense of involvement, a task involvement in the organization. So, what employees do is they start identifying themselves with the organization. They start referring to themselves as we, not as they. Right? And because the status and requirements are better addressed, employees are more highly driven under this model than all the other previous models that we have discussed, therefore, earlier. So, employees who are under this model, they have a reawakened motivation to work. The last one is a collegial model. This model is said to be like, a helpful addition to the supportive model. What collegial model refers to is, it refers to a group of individuals who cooperate with one another. This model requires managers to foster a sense of partnership. That is the key word here, partnership with the workers. Employees, they feel needed and they feel useful because of this kind of an approach. And it becomes simple for the employees to embrace and respect the functions that the managers play in their business, because they believe that they contribute also. And managers are viewed, they're viewed more as collaborators than as superiors, right? This managerial approach, that is the collegial model, it emphasizes a lot on collaboration, right? So who are prized individuals here, right? All those individuals who act as coaches, who develop a better squad, better team, right? Those are prized employees here. And see, this will have a positive impact on the employees also. The employees, what they'll do, they'll react responsibly to the circumstances. They will create high quality work, because, they feel that it is their responsibility, their personal responsibility to do so, not because just because the management is giving them instructions, or just because the if they don't do, somebody will catch hold of them. No. So they are doing it because they want to do it, because they are positively engaged with the organization. One important psychological outcome of this collegial model is self-discipline amongst the employees. Employees feel accountable for their success, on their team discipline. They themselves, they think that, nobody needs to monitor them. Nobody needs to keep an eye on them. They will discipline themselves. They adhere to the requirements. They follow the rules of the thing. Everything is there, right? That is a collegial model. So this picture just gives you a brief comparison of various models: autocratic, custodial, supportive, and collegial, from different aspects. So as far as the basis of model is there, in autocratic model, it was power that was the model. In custodial model, it was economic resources. Supportive model, it was leadership, and partnership. And the collegial model, it is partnership, right? So power was more important in autocratic model. Money was more important in custodial model. Effective leadership was more important in supportive model, and building partnership was more important in collegial model. Coming to managerial orientation, again, in autocratic model, it is authority. In custodial model, it is money. And in supportive model, what a manager does is support. And in a collegial model, what a manager does is bring teamwork. And what is the employee orientation? What is the behavior from the point of the employee? In autocratic model, it is obedience, compliance. In custodial model, it is trying to gain security, trying to gain benefits. Supportive model, putting in job performance, required job performance. And collegial model, responsible behavior, right? How to be a responsible employees without any external monitoring. That is how the employee orientation is. Coming to the psychological state of the employee, in an autocratic model, the employee is completely dependent on the boss. In the custodial model, an employee is completely dependent on the organization. In a supportive model, the employee participates, right? He's participating with what is happening. And in a collegial model, you will see that all employees are self-disciplined. They don't need anybody to monitor them, right? And coming to employee needs, what kind of needs are satisfied in these different models? Basic existence needs are satisfied in autocratic model. Security needs are satisfied in the custodial model. And in employees working in supportive model, they get status and recognition. And employees working in collegial model, their self-actualization needs are also fulfilled. And coming to what is the result? How is the result? In autocratic model, like we already discussed, employees put in the bare minimum work, just the minimum amount that is required. So obviously the performance would be minimum. In custodial models, there would be passive cooperation with the organization. In supportive models, people would have, awakened drives. They are motivated to perform. And under collegial model, they have moderate enthusiasm, right? So this was like, a brief overview of all the different models under OB, right? So with this, I will stop the session for now. We have completed unit 4, 5, and 6. The next session, that is next Saturday, when we would have a class again, right? So in that, we will discuss session 7, 8, and 9, unit 7, 8, and 9, the next Saturday, right? So with that, I would leave the class. Thank you once and all.
Thank you, ma'am.